Well, as you can see, we got another swarm. Caught one down in here in the woods, just on an old log. I'm gonna try to go in it and see how much is in there and try to open up the entrance reducer to give them more room to kind of pile up here on the outside trying to get in. Well, we're getting ready to head back out and lock up that swarm. Hopefully most of the foragers are back in, but got our cutters, our staplers, wire, hardware cloth, some tape, whatnot. So we're just going out in the woods and then come back to the farm, so it shouldn't be too bad. So hopefully there will be enough in tonight that we can lock them in and bring them on back for tomorrow. Well, we're back down here and you can tell that the bees aren't quite all the way in yet. I'm gonna go and see if I can smoke them in and then go ahead and tighten it up and see if I can move them. Okay, here's the swarm. We've got it back to the farm and I've got it locked up for tonight, ratcheted it up and all. We got a little stick in front of it just so they'll get accustomed to this, and I'm gonna try to have a little screen you can't see, but I've got them locked in there with a little piece of hardware cloth. Can't really see it, but anyway, so they'll stay in there for maybe 24 hours, not quite 24 hours if the weather's pretty decent tomorrow, and I let the stick stay up there so help them orientate back to where they're located now that we've moved them. But we got them back. Okay, it's Sunday morning now. If you remember, we brought the swarm in last night about, I guess, close to 9 o'clock p.m. And we put the little stick here just so when we open it up, they kind of get oriented and kind of know where they're at since we moved them from deep in the woods. But you can tell they're all up at the front. So I'm gonna open them up and give them some sugar water and maybe some pollen patties since it's supposed to rain for 3 or 4 days straight, and just give them a chance to have a little boost. Okay, here's the inside of the swarm. They pretty much are on at least 3 frames I can see good, even on the lid here. So we'll check them out and see if it was, I've only missing one marked queen from this year that literally just, I don't know if she's in another box or whatnot, so we're gonna see if this is the one that got away from me or if it's one of the wild bees or whatnot, so we're gonna see. Okay, welcome back everybody. This is the swarm and it's slam packed full. So I've gone to the barn and I've got an 8 frame deep. I'm gonna switch them over just because we're fixing to have about 3 or 4 days with the rain and it's kind of cold. So they are slam full in here and everything is honey bound. So I'm going to give them a super on top of the 8 frame as well and change it over and give them some pollen patty and some liquid feed and see if that helps them. But I did find the queen and she is not mine. These bees look like a swarm that I caught last year down in the river swamp. They're a little darker than normal, but I'm not sure for 100% sure, but they look like the kind of the ones that I caught last year, and I had 2 or 3 hives of the swamp bees last year. So I'm thinking this might be it. I'm not real sure, but anyway, it's not one of mine. Here is how I transfer. I just try to put the box side by side with it, and I try to keep the frames in the exact same spot they're in here. Normally I would try to checkerboard them, which means put a real full frame, and then an empty frame and let them draw it out, and then another full frame and an empty frame. But right now with moving a swarm that I just caught, changing boxes, I think that's a lot going on. So I'm just gonna try to put them in there, give them some extra frames, let them draw them out, put a honey super on, and then just let them kind of move all their honey around and all 4 of those, and the queen doesn't really have a chance to lay. Trying to go slow because the bees are just lined in the wall. You can see them hanging on. They are just lined. I already saw the queen. If I find her again, I might try to catch her and mark her, but you know, I just don't want to upset them too much right now with just catching the swarm, moving them last night. But it's full of nectar. That thing is slap full. They're not too bad. They're a little frustrated, but from what they've been through, they're actually pretty cool. And I know you can't see it, but the nectar, if Liv, you can see that right there. The whole, every frame is just full of that nectar. They don't even have anywhere for her to lay. She was on queen was on this one a minute ago when I opened them up. See if I can find her again. And this was just an old nasty frame that I threw in there that smells good, an old brood frame. That yucky stuff there, she's right there. See her spinning? She's looking for somewhere to put her tail down and drop an egg. And see all that nectar? She has absolutely nowhere. Right there. She has nowhere. See, she's looking for a spot. We'll put her back down there. She looks a little agitated and nervous. So I'm just gonna put her in there and let her be. I'm not even gonna try to mark her or anything today. I'll come back out in about a week and let them get settled down and I'll mark her then. But again, like I say, I think this is a hive from last year from down in the river swamp because they're real dark. There's a ton of drones in here. A ton, and you can see right there, they built that out, I guess, in the last day or two. So, hopefully moving them into a bigger box will give them a little bit more space. There's another group clustered over here. It might be another queen down here. A lot of times in swarms, you'll have, see they're building that too, you'll have 2 queens. And again, I'm not gonna hunt. I'm just gonna try to get them in here. It's kind of chilly outside today and the overcast and the storms are coming. We're supposed to have, I think, 3 or 4 days full. So you can see down there, there's a couple of clusters. I'm gonna get these other frames in and then I'm gonna shake them down in there and check for a queen first. Just got some new frames that I just waxed the other night in the barn. So hopefully this will encourage them to draw out, especially when I'm feeding or gonna feed and giving them some pollen patties. I always like to give a new split or young split, young swarm, something like that. I usually try to give them a little bit of help. This is just old nasty frame, but it's got some wax, so if they need it, they can use it and spread it out. The bees are smart. They'll do what they need to do. Then we just got a couple other wax frames we just finished doing. I'm gonna try to line these up a little bit. I try to give them an even space on both sides. Now, I'm gonna kind of look in here and just make sure there's not another queen, because sometimes in a swarm, there'll be more than one queen. There's a cluster here. They may be just trying to stay together and cluster up, but a lot of times that's a sign of another queen. Let me see if I can pop this box and see the side. I'm just gonna try to shake them over there. I can't tell, I don't see another one. If I saw another queen, I'd take her, because I've already seen one in there on the frame. I don't see them. These bees are dark and they have a slender look to them. That's the only reason I think they're long. That's the only reason I think it might be the bees from the swamp last year. Sometimes they're real aggressive. But there's another little cluster right here. I can't tell if there's maybe a queen in that. I don't see another one, but I don't know. They were cramped in here. Like to get them out of that box. You can see right here, that was the Q-tip That's what's left of a Q-tip. Well, I baited this box with lemongrass oil on the Q-tip. They've eaten everything else out of there. Shredded it to pieces. See, they're carrying a dead one out right there. Look at it. See that dead one? Carrying that dead one out. See it? That's what they were doing down here. Liv, get right there. Show this one. See? That's what they were doing. They were cleaning, getting rid of some dead ones out. Dragging it out. Look at it. Dragging it out. Anything dead. That's how smart bees are. So I don't really want to put all this trash in there. So I'm just going to take this one around front and just kind of shake them out in the front. And they're out here. And they'll get it. They'll know what's theirs. Brush some of that mess off front. They'll find it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and give them a pollen patty, and just because again it's gonna squirt a little bit, it's gonna rain for like 3 or 4 days, so I'm gonna lock them up in here. They're gonna have access to come out, but I'm gonna not bother them and just hope that they stay in here good, and she'll lay if I'll give them some food and maybe some feed. Give them a chance with all this rainy weather. This pollen patty is just, they have to have pollen to be able to make brood and want to make the babies and brood and whatnot, and the wax building up. So the pollen patties are just artificial pollen, which is in that feeder that I have right over there. But if they can't fly out of the hive and there's rain, then I want it inside of here. So it's just simple sugar, simple syrup, sugar, and pollen. And we make them up, and I made them on that last video where I stirred them all up in the barn and whatnot. And then I just squirt and let them come out and get that. I have to mash that down a little bit because of that feeder. I mean that pollen patty. Now I'm gonna put this honey super on as well. And I've got a few drawn out combs from last spin on the honey, and all the other ones are just taken up. So I've got some that we just waxed. So I'm just gonna give them a chance. They'll move that honey around that's down there, the nectar, and they'll move it back up in here and do what they need to do. I'll put the wax ones kind of in the center and hope they'll build out. And then I'm gonna put a feeder on, and they're already going in there now. You see how they're already trying to go in the top of that? This particular one doesn't have an entrance up here, so they'll make it. They can get through the excluder, the foragers can, and they can come on up as well, and but just not the queen. But I'm gonna try to put the feeder, have a Boardman feeder, and it'll look something like this, and I'll just put it with fill this with the syrup on the front entrance. There's that stick that I told you I put up there last night so they could kind of try to find their way back home, basically. And this is one of the feeders. I don't really like these kind too much, but I have some other ones ordered that are inner cover, but this one will work. I might stick a little wedge just because it helps it balance a little bit better, but I'll just fill this mason jar full of sugar water and put it right there. Feed them. Just 1-to-1 sugar water, 1 part sugar, 1 part water. And again, I don't really like these kind of feeders too much. They're called Boardman feeders. But right now it's all I got with everything else and all the other hives away from here. So, and you see it'll form a suction, and then they'll drink it. They'll come up through the center of the hive and they'll drink it. So it's better. But anyway, I'll leave this stick here for a day or so. And most of them, you can see, they'll find their way back in. They'll go back in there. But when I move a hive, I try to at least give it a little chance to find where it was. Especially when you change color boxes.